where we talk to some of the most inspiring entrepreneurs to hear their story about how they got to where they were going and the hows and the whys. And most of all, the fun of it. It may not be fun when you're going through it, but when you look back on your life and the things you've accomplished, it seems to be pretty fun. So tonight we've got a great entrepreneur, Joel Gandara. He's been an entrepreneur since he was 10 years old. He'll tell his story about coming over to the United States and sort of his journey with that, and then how he bought his first house at 22 and built a successful apparel business, which he's recently sold. And now he's on to the next phase. And we were talking a little bit before about how he's really passionate about it. And he's really, after 40 some odd years, he's found his passion. So we're going to get into it with him. So welcome, Joel, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, Phil, my pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, it's as we were talking a little bit about your past and what where you're heading and what you're doing. I think it's a great inspirational story for some of our entrepreneurs and some of the wannabe entrepreneurs that are out there. So I think if we just start off with sort of your background, give people a little bit of history about who you are, what you do, and how you got to be where you're going.
Sure. First off, you're absolutely right when you said at the beginning, it's not fun sometimes in the moment because we don't know where we're going to end up. Had I been able to go backwards and say, oh, you're going to get to this, then the pressure would have been off. But in the moment, it's a pressure of, am I really going to make it? Am I going to end up under a bridge? That was a common theme that would go through my head, as ridiculous as it might sound. I sometimes still think that. I think, is this all too good to be true? Where am I going to end up? So history of me. You know, it's funny. I've told my story so many times I get bored of hearing it, but I always have to remember somebody might have not heard it before. So born in Havana, Cuba, communist country. My parents knew they did not want to be there. My dad was left there alone at 17 years old, and his parents had the opportunity to leave the country. And he was in a work labor camp, a forced labor camp, sentenced to 3 years at 17 years old. Immediately, they kind of let him go because he got so sick. They almost killed him to death with all the hard work. And he was able to go home, but by then his whole family was gone. Parents, brothers, sisters, everybody was gone. He didn't reunite with them until 13 years later. And by that time he was married, had my brother and had me. And we came to this country on a small boat in the Mariel boat lifts in 1980. Castro let a bunch of people out, and some were good people and some were prisoners and mental asylums. Those are the types of people so we came in with a bad rap of, hey, which one are you? So we always had that kind of hanging over our head. So got to the United States and went straight to California because that's where my grandfather had set up shop at a factory where he got a job and worked there for 30-something years, very hardworking guy. So we grew up very poor because didn't know the language and we're starting from zero. And imagine this, at 30-something years old with 2 kids, go to a different country and know nothing. And even though they were in a communist country, which was horrible, anywhere's better, but at least they knew the language. At least they knew what street to turn on and how to ask for directions. And my mom was a high school physics teacher in Cuba. My dad was an electrician. When they got here, imagine, my mom cleaned hotels at the Sir Francis Drake. She cleaned rooms at the Sir Francis Drake Hotel in San Francisco. And my dad would fix people's TVs and radios for a few bucks and do some little odd jobs, switch out light switches for people. Finally got a job that we were always below average, way below average. In fact, we started in poverty and they worked their way up to like lower middle class after many years of working. My parents were very smart with their money. They bought a house 2 years after we moved here, a small townhouse, but I grew up in there and lived there a good chunk of my life. And they paid it off 7 years after getting here. So all the time I knew, and I would watch TV shows and see what the potential was, even though I didn't live in a good neighborhood at all. I knew that, man, you could buy a house in this country. You can pay it off 7 years later, even when you're way below average. And by below average, my parents would always tell me, become a school teacher. Look at so-and-so. They make $30,000 a year. That's amazing. That's like what your mom and I combined for, things like that. That's how poor we were. So that was like the thought, if you could get a job like that. But I didn't want a job like that. What I wanted as a kid were toys. And my parents wouldn't buy me toys because there wasn't enough money. It's either food or toys. It's going to be food. And there was always enough food. So what happened is I started trading things at school, buying things, retail arbitrage, whatever I could get my hands on. The first thing was trading cards and stamps, My parents got a job, both of them, at a not-for-profit radio station for years. And I would go to the shortwave department where letters would come from overseas, and I would get that envelope, and I would tear off the really nice stamps that they were going in the garbage. And I would go there all summer and spend the summer with them because they didn't have money for a babysitter. So I would spend my whole summer ripping off stamps carefully and making nice albums. And then in September, I'd start selling them at school. No cost of products. And I'd get 40, 50, 60 cents, $1 on a really nice stamp. And that was one of the first businesses. Trading cards was another one. Chocolates in high school. I made $30 a day in high school every day. I didn't realize it till like my junior, senior year, but that allowed me to pay my car insurance. My dad gave me a car that broke down right away, so I had to buy another car that cost me $1,000. But I was able to do all the stuff on my own, pay all my going out money, my lunch money, everything. So that's kind of the beginning. Obviously, it went on beyond that, but that's the early time.
That's amazing. It's the story of people coming. I have cousins who came from Italy. Similar story. They came here to work and learned to be frugal and learn how to stretch the dollar, and paid off their houses and started businesses. One was a seamstress and one was a barber, and they wound up really creating nice lives for themselves. They came from sort of a terrible situation, right? Not as bad as yours, but still a bad situation, and they made it better. And I think when we grow up here, we don't see it that way. We just think everything is there for the taking, so it's a different mindset. And I can imagine that mindset driving you to where you wanted to get to.
Yeah. Well, gratefulness is it's like the shortcut to happiness. And you can be easily grateful when you know what it could be like. If you're born with wealth and your parents handed you everything, it doesn't make for a great life, because then everything is a step down or it's just blah. But when you have nothing and that's your focal point all your life, you're like, I have nothing. One day I'll have something. And then you get a little bit, man, it's a multiple that's phenomenal in that appreciation. I have something that I do. It's a gratefulness practice every single morning. When I walk into my closet, I have a shirt that I see. It's the first thing I see when I walk into my closet. It's the shirt I had on the boat when I came here from Cuba as a kid. And the moment I walk in and I see that, I go, oh, that's right. I'm here for a reason. I got to make it count. I have 15 cousins that I've never met that can't come here, and that I'm not going over there. So I'm the one. I was chosen to be here, and I got to make it count. And that has motivated me. I've seen that every day since I was a little kid.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I would think you can't go back, or you don't want to go back, because I think you can travel there now, can't we?
I can. Here's the problem, though. I'm a loudmouth, and I don't hold my thoughts. I'm very clear, and I don't like injustices. And if I see what's going on there, which I know what it is. Oh, and by the way, my mom was going every other year to visit her mom until she died a couple of years ago. And so my mom would always tell me, I'd love for you to come and meet all your family, but you will get imprisoned, because I know you're going to come here and say, this is unfair. How could you guys? And I'll try to start a revolution, and that's not going to help anybody.
There's nothing wrong with that. Well, nothing wrong with starting a revolution, but right. Ending up in prison is probably not the greatest thing.
Yeah, because I'm afraid nobody's going to back me up. I'll be the only one.
Yeah. So you went from San Francisco, and then how did you start? I mean, you've started several businesses. How'd you go from selling chocolate in high school to fund your lifestyle to starting businesses?
Sure.
What were the steps?
I never knew that what business I would be in. I remember at 22 years old, someone asking me, what are you being so frugal for? What are you saving all this money for? What's your plan? And I said, I don't have a plan. I'm saving capital so that the day that situation comes up, I'll be ready. But I don't know what it is. If I had to wait until I knew what it was to start saving, I would have been way too late in the game.
Yeah.
So let's see. During high school, I started going to garage sales regularly and looking for stuff. Just drive the streets looking for stuff. I check the newspaper on Friday, see the plan, and go check them out, and just hoping I'd find something. I have an uncle who's a mailman, and he would do that on his days off, and so that was good for him. And you could call it pure luck, but I was getting up every morning and doing this. I found a guy selling jockey underwear, brand new in the package. Turns out he was a sales rep for that company. He'd sell to all the major department stores, and he'd be left over with samples every collection. So he had them for $3. I talked him down to $1. And the last thing he said right before he agreed to $1 was, you know what, Joel, I like what you're doing. I have a son your age. He's inside the house playing video games, and I've offered him all of these underwear for free for years, and he won't stand here and do it. So here I am. The guy was 40-something years old, and he said, Sundays are made for playing tennis. Take them all for $1. Go sell them at the flea market. I bought them for $1, sold them for about $6 each, made $3,000 off of my $500. And then he called me every 6 months and said, Joel, he liked my hustle. And he'd say, Joel, I got 2,000 pieces for you this collection. I've got 2,500. He kept adding more, giving away less freebies to the buyers just so he could sell them to me. And that got me to grow into becoming an eBay seller. I got tired of sitting in the sun at the flea markets. So I started selling on eBay back in the 90s, July 99. I formed my first eBay account. And instead of getting $6 an item, I was getting $10, $12 an item, still buying them for $1. Problem is that was limited supply. So I had to keep looking for more things all the time. And bingo, I hit the jackpot. Although you don't know it's a jackpot in the moment. I found a manufacturer in Mexico who was looking for a distributor in the US. I speak Spanish. They speak Spanish. I speak English. I can help them sell here. And placed an order, $2,400. Sold it quickly on eBay. Called him a week later, the owner. I said, I sold out. I need more. And we kept doing this. And I got up to buying over $1 million a year from him. And that went phenomenally well. I learned so much because now I had this older guy kind of giving me guidance, saying, it's on you, Joel. You're buying all the products. You take the risk. You open a warehouse. You do this. One step at a time. Started in the house, got a warehouse, got employees. But then what happened is once we got growing real good, that guy visited me. And he realized that I was doing pretty well. And I guess they had family discussions. And the son, who was never interested in the company, all of a sudden was interested in my territory. I was not an employee. I was not a rep. I had my own company. I was buying wholesale, stocking it, and selling to stores, risking all of it, having a lot of products at all times. But the son came in and emailed all my customers and said, hey, they didn't have access to my database. It's just that when it's on the internet, you could figure it out. And emailed everybody and said, hey, we'd like to be in touch with you and build a relationship. And that scared the heck out of me. And, when you look at your lifeline, and these are good moments way up here, and these are bad moments way down here. And when you're in the dark, it looks like nothing's ever going to fix it. Those are sometimes the best moments of life because that's what wakes you up and pushes you. I was working 12 hours a day. What more could I do? But then I started to have to work smarter because I said, this guy's going to take everything I built from me. At the time, I was early 30s, 2 kids, a wife, and I was stressed out. I hit rock bottom at the press for 24 hours. And then a mentor at the time said, go build your own brand. You built all these relationships with the stores. You're the one flying to see them. You're the one sending them Starbucks cards and handwritten notes and seeing them at the trade shows. Go visit them and tell them that you're going to start a new brand. And I did. And they all said, yeah, we like you. We're going to buy from you. In fact, all of my clients, like, I don't know, 80% probably said, oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you're ready, tell us and we'll stop buying that other brand. I couldn't believe the loyalty that they had just because I think I treated them pretty well. And that's how I got started. And then from there, there's a lot more stories, but that's how I got started in business.
I think, in business, one rule I learned early on is people want to do business with people they like and people they trust. And it takes a long time to get there. So somebody tries to come and steal your business. It's almost like when you build a brand. You're building a brand, you're building loyalty with your customer, you're building trust with your customer. It's very hard for somebody to shake that away from them, It's the same type of thing when you're building relationships in sales and marketing or direct sales or whatever. But it's funny, we had a guy on last week, Matt Williamson, he's on his third startup, very successful guy. He's a really good guy. And we were talking about the getting started and those moments when you hit a wall and you think, oh my God, why did I do this? Is it going to be successful? Am I going to make it out of this? And it's really the people who persevere that do. Certainly a lot of people just go, I can't do it. Something's going to happen. This is bad. And I'm not going to be able to work my way out of it. But the ability to persevere, the ability, and you said it, you sometimes when you're pressed, it's when you do your best thinking. For me, it's when I'm afraid, when I'm scared that I do my best work, because then I'm afraid of losing it, or I'm afraid that this is going to fall apart. So, it's good that you had a mentor to sort of talk you down off the ledge. so to
Yeah, and
speak.
I've reached out to him many times over the years, just thanking him. The last time was in the last year, and that's been, I don't know, 17 years ago, 18, 16 years ago. Yeah, mentors are phenomenal, coaches are phenomenal, and fear is a big motivator. It's a massive motivator. In fact, I've been on a 10-kilometer race in the woods on a trail and feeling like I just couldn't catch that guy in front of me. He's just so fast and I can't catch him. But then I heard a guy's footsteps behind me. And that fear of getting passed up was way more of a motivator. So guess what happened? That guy for 10 kilometers had me going at a personal record pace. And in the end, I was really up with the guy in front of me as well. But it wasn't the guy in front of me, that success, that motivated me and my particular personality, maybe yours too. It was the fear of getting passed by that guy. It almost felt like it was a lion after me and I couldn't let him catch me. But yeah, fear is a big motivator.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. A bunch of years ago, I started doing triathlons, and I was running and I was cycling, but I wasn't a swimmer. And I took lessons and spent about a year training on swimming so I could do this. But swimming in a pool, swimming at the gym is a lot different than swimming in the open water. My first triathlon, it, there's something about when you put your face in that cold water and you start swimming that your body just freezes. And the problem is you go out and then you have to swim back. So there is no turning back. Like you're out there, you have no choice but to get back or you're going to drown. And that fear, sort of that overcoming that fear in a lot of ways, just that simple process of learning how to overcome the fear of swimming in open water sort of helped me overcome fear in life because it really, I felt like when I accomplished that, it didn't matter about the rest of the race, didn't matter about running or cycling. It mattered about the fact that I got out of that water alive after swimming a mile. That I felt it was a huge accomplishment, and because like I said, I never swum before. So it's similar to the 10K story, except my fear wasn't the guy passing me. My fear was I'm going to drown.
Yeah, I got something I have to share. So I've had a trauma with the ocean my whole life because when I came here on a boat as a kid, when there was a storm for 3 or 4 hours of the 12 hours we were in that boat, and when the waves would take us up, I was a kid, but man, I have a clear memory of this. It was sky. And when we went to the bottom of that wave, we were surrounded by four walls of water and I couldn't see the top.
Oh,
So that has stuck with me. I still smell the ocean and my heart starts racing. That never went away ever since then. So, and we'll talk about it later, I'm sure. I coach people through a few things. And one of them in my book, my challenge series book, day 18 is fear and conquering your fears. And I always say, I don't get a free pass because I wrote this book and take guys through it. I do, excuse me, I do the things that are in there. So I'm terribly scared of the ocean, total respect for it. And so last month I got scuba certified and dove
oh,
to the bottom of the ocean. And that is something that if you would have told me a year ago, my heart would have raced, I would have lost oxygen and I would have hyperventilated. And
exactly.
I did all of that, but I still got through that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's something that I've thought about. I don't know if I could execute it, but I've thought about it because
If you're swimming
there's
in a triathlon, you can handle it. You get oxygen. There's a tank.
I, yeah, I know there's a tank, but it's when you're down there, when you're in the water, when you think about it logically, right? When you're swimming in the water, you think about it logically. All I have to do is get my head out of the water and I can sit there and uh, doggy paddle or whatever I have to do. And I'm not going to die. Rationally, I'm not going to die. But irrationally, you're sitting out there going, your heart starts racing, you start breathing faster, and that's what causes the problem. And what would happen to me underwater, I think, would be this fear of the darkness and the compression and the whole thing. It would, I don't know. I'd like to think I could do it, and maybe I will one day. But
Well, when you
like
want to
you,
come do it down here in South Florida, I'll join you.
yeah, right, like you, like you, one of my biggest fears in life is the ocean. So
Yeah.
I try to overcome that. But were you in San Francisco at this point still, or had you moved?
Yeah. So during that, I know by then I was in South Florida. So I went from San Francisco, where I grew up, that area, Oakland, to down to Los Angeles for a couple of years, and then to South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
And is that when you started were you doing the underwear at that point, or?
Yeah, all that time. The flea markets and garage sale was in Northern California, Oakland, LA. I was still doing flea markets, but then I discovered eBay while I was in LA. Moved all the way to Miami, and the guy would call me every 6 months and say, "I've got the new collection samples." And that lasted, by the way, 11 years. So
Wow.
every 6 months I bought from him. The thing is, I didn't have to wait those 11 years to get my own brand going and get everything else going. By the time he stopped selling to me, I had already doing 7 figures and starting to get it off the ground. It was starting to grow into something real.
So you started your own brand and that took off?
Well,
That's hard
the
work.
order of it was, getting the samples that I could sell online, getting the brand out of Mexico to sell to me, and getting that growing. So, but there was one problem along that at that point in my life and in my business. I was a middleman and I had no power. I was buying products from other people's brands. And yes, I was the exclusive distributor for whatever that's worth on the territory. But they could take that away at any time. And the next part is I did not own the customer. So I don't own the brand. I don't own the customers. Who am I? I'm a middleman. And something technology has done is take away the middleman. You can manufacture horseshoes right now and start a website and you'll sell horseshoes.
Yeah.
So what I quickly realized when I got, let down by that supplier who I was almost partners with, I felt like family, and they got into my space. I said, I have to start my own brand. And here I started my own brand. It did very well, to my surprise. Then I started a second, a third. And around there, I started in acquisition mode where I realized that I could start buying people in my industry. And the first one was a very simple little website that I bought for $90,000. And they were doing 300,000 a year in sales. My first year, I did 750,000, just over it. And my second year with that little website, I did 1,050,000. Again, with
Wow.
that little website that was doing 300,000 maybe, and I bought it for $90,000. That changed my life. That was a moment really in my life that just blew me away, because all this time I've been scraping and working hard to wholesale here and a little wholesale there. I bought an e-commerce site who I was wholesaling to. And that now allowed me to go direct to consumer. By then I owned a couple of brands. So now I solved my two problems. I own brands and I own the customer's information, because that came with like 30,000 legit loyal customers, small customers, but we quickly grew it. And every time we got a new customer, all I could think of is, no one's taking this away from me. I own their email address. I know their phone number. I could market to them. And we acquired 14 different businesses in that space during that time.
Wow. That's fantastic. And so how big did you grow that? Very.
So we never hit 10 million in sales, but here's the beauty of it. It was a highly profitable business and it was not seasonal at all. Every month was the same as the other. The net profit on it was over $1 million every year. I had no partners, so it was pretty nice. But here's the beauty. About 38 years old or so, it was almost 10 years ago now, I got to the point where I didn't have to work anymore. And the business was still doing very well and still driving in the same revenue, slowly growing, but I didn't have to work anymore. That's the key. So, once you get that flywheel, which takes forever to spin, and once you get it going fast enough, you can let go of the wheel and it keeps spinning. Now, you add to it good vendors, good manufacturing, good employees, good systems, and that flywheel goes on without me. In fact, I realized it when I would go to work and my warehouse manager would say, you're not really needed out here. There's nothing
Yeah.
for you to do, but I'm used to working, and I've been
Yeah.
working since I was a kid, and I'd get my hands dirty and I'd mess things up in the warehouse. I go, we don't do it that way. We've changed that because this, and this. I go, oh, that's better than what I would have come up with. So it was nice because it gave me a great income, a great life. But again, I didn't have to go to work, and I would just go to say hi, to take people to lunch and make sure things were going well. So that's how I spent
Yeah.
the last 8 years or so in the business, 9 years, until I sold it.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And you just sold it
Yeah,
recently?
just in the last few months. Yeah, 3
Wow,
months
that's
or
great.
less.
So what are we on to now? What's the
Yes.
next phase?
Yeah. So it's funny how things happen. Once food is taken care of, shelter's taken care of, future kids, everything is taken care of, and you're not worrying about that. You get to do something that I thought was just hippie talk. Find your passion. I would always hear people say, find your passion. I go, phooey. For me, it's just you got to make money, and my passion is making money. That's what I always thought. But it's funny how, and I've seen this because I've had mentors who've exited their business for a lot of money, and then they become a different person. They trade in the Ferrari, and now their life is a little bit different. I get it now. I never had the Ferrari because I was always very frugal. So I didn't do any of that. But now I realize that it's not about money. It's about what's my legacy going to be, but only legacy, not for my ego, but because I impacted people's lives. And you hear this and it just sounds, that sounds like, I used to hear people say this stuff all the time. I thought it was garbage. And now I get it. Like, I want to make an impact on the world by helping people become better. And so since I wasn't working much in my operating company, I started coaching people for fun, and it was successful entrepreneurs, some with bigger businesses than me, but they had some holes that they needed help with. And I was able to do that. I'm a member in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. So that gives me access to such great people and friends. And my Rolodex is built mostly of people who are in there. And that led to some people saying, hey, could you coach me on this thing? And it became a paying gig. I didn't expect that at all. I wanted to just volunteer and do it. And once I started doing it, I started learning some things over years of like, oh, that's what the ultra successful are doing. And that's what the not so successful are doing. And then coincidentally, as I got better in business and in life and in everything, I realized my habits started changing. The people I surround myself started changing. So I made an attempt. I got 24 very successful friends around December of last year. And I said, guys, do you want to do a challenge series with me? And my friends are all great people who want to get ahead and keep improving despite how big their businesses are and successful they are. And all of them said yes. And so we formed this WhatsApp group. I found a challenge book for 31 days. And I said, let's do these things. And let's have a Zoom call at the end of every week and see how we're doing. And it went so well. I was having an absolute blast. Every guy in there was telling me how it's changing their lives. That wasn't my book or anything. I just picked up a book. And as we were going along, some of the guys would start saying things like, this is good, but Joel, you gave me a better example than the book, because years ago you told me this, this, and this. And then pretty soon people started telling me, you should write this book, Joel. And who am I to write a book? I was this poor kid outside of Oakland, California. And what do I know? And poor parents. And a couple friends convinced me. And I said, all right, I'll write a book. And the second class didn't have my book yet. It took me a couple of classes to write the book and edit it and publish it and everything. And but the second class was a paid class, because the first class, half the guys said, I want to do this again. And one of them said, but Joel, we got to pay you. You're leading this group. And all right, what do you guys think? We set a price. They paid me. And a few $1,000s came in to hang out with my friends and help people. That's pretty cool. Well, that second class had a tremendous entrepreneur, a very good friend of mine now, Kevin Thatcher. And he said, dude, this was amazing, but you've got to have a maintenance program. I go, what does that mean? What do we call it? What do you think? By the end of the day, I knew what it meant because he told me. He designed a logo for him. I had somebody design a logo for me, and we had it on the website. And we had like 20 guys signed up for the Brotherhood. It's an all men's group. So 20 guys said, we did the class. It was fantastic. Let's keep this going. And that's what I'm doing now. We're growing these classes, keep bringing in more people. It's kind of the filtering process. And if they're amazing, I invite them to join this Brotherhood, where we continue to build on what they did in those first 31 days.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. I just want to go back to something you said about after you sold the business and you understand, you calm down a little bit, and you sort of regrouped and re-altered your framework. There was a guy that we interviewed a while ago. I don't know if you're a dog lover or not, but do you familiar with greenies? They're it's a tooth thing for dogs, and they're very popular item. You see them all over PetSmart or whatever. You give it to your dog every day, cleans its teeth, and helps get rid of the plaque and things like that. This way you don't have to brush. Yeah. The guy who invented that is a guy named Joe Rotelli out of St. Louis. And he invented it back in the 90s, and he sold it to Mars for gobs of money in the early 2000s. And since then, he's gone on and he has a tool company called Spider, which he sells in Lowe's and Home Depot. And then he just started another company called Yummy Combs, again, targeted at dogs, cleaning their teeth, etc., because gum disease is bad for dogs. But here's the kicker. The guy's 80 years old and he's still starting businesses, and he doesn't care about the money. And like you, he was saying, he cares about his legacy. So what does he do? He lives in the same house that he raised his family in St. Louis, that he bought in the 60s. He doesn't really care about the money. He cares about solving problems, but he takes his money and he builds houses in Central America for poor people. He brings a team of guys down there. They build houses. It's all his money. He doesn't ask for anybody else's money. And all he talks about is his inspiration and his legacy. Because when you leave behind, what are you leaving behind? Does anybody care that you started Yummy Combs or started Greenies? No, they care about the things you did well and things you did good in the world. So I'm just relating that because it sounds like that's the path you're headed on with, okay, I was good in business. I did what I had to do. I've raised, I've gotten my family set up. Now it's really about me trying to leave behind some sort of legacy and touch people, because what you're essentially doing with all these guys is inspiring them and touching them with whatever your part is, which we'll go into now. I mean,
Sure. And that's the idea, that if I can impact, and I specialize in helping guys because I'm a guy and I know the language and the thought process and all that. If I can help this guy, then he shows up better. Then maybe he drinks less, he exercises more, he reads a little more, whatever he wants to work on. Then how does he show up to his kids and to his wife and to his employees, employers, his neighbors? And he makes people a little bit happier and stresses them out a little. Then we're slowly making a little bit better world. And I can't change the world, but I can help a few guys, 24 guys at a time in my classes. And then in that ongoing brotherhood chapter, I could definitely help people out. So that's the idea. Absolutely. I love it.
But you are changing the world when you think about it, because what I found, what I realized was when I was doing triathlons and I was doing these training things and my kids were young and they would see me and they would see sort of the discipline that I was doing. I've sort of lost a little bit about that, but I'm getting back to it. But anyway, they used to see that and I think it had a positive impact, because what they didn't see was I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't spend my time doing other things. I work hard. I work smart. I have, a business and businesses, and I was working out, and my kids saw that, and I think it does impact them. And so
Yeah.
you're impacting these 24 guys, but you're really impacting the kids, their circle that's around them, and their wives and their kids. So it winds up spreading, and so it is changing the world, even if it's a
Yeah.
small part of the world.
Yeah, and it starts at home with your own family. I have 4 kids, and everyone who meets them says they're all doing very well, for, the 9-year-old, the 11-year-old, the 16, 18, wherever they are in their point in life, they're doing really well. And I've had a lot of people comment about that. And I say that doesn't happen by accident, because they tell me
No.
I'm lucky. Well, you can get lucky once, twice, three, four times. It's the example that we're doing. And same thing. I've got a full gym here that at home, and they see without me saying, kids, I'm going to go work out. You should work out. I don't have to say that. I just go do it regularly, and they see that. Again, just like you, I don't smoke. I've never tried a drug. I don't drink alcohol. Those are good habits, and I think they see them, and I show up better because of it. I'm not going to be, thrown on the couch, where my daughter can see that and go, oh, I guess that's acceptable when you look for a husband. My son can think that's how you act in life when I'm a father. I don't want any of that. So yeah, you live by example.
Yeah, that's a great point, because what people are impacted, your kids are impacted by that. Your daughters see the way that you are, and they say that's the kind of husband that I want. We didn't have a household where we argued. My wife and I never really argue. The kids weren't kids that sat in their rooms. They were very active, tennis or horseback riding or sailing or whatever they were doing, and we encouraged it. But they definitely view, I think, marriage a little bit different than some of their peers who maybe didn't have such a stable household. So I think it's a great thing, and whenever you can impact your kids in a positive way, I think it's a great opportunity, especially when you're talking about 24 guys and spreading that out. So I applaud
Absolutely.
what you're doing. I think it's great. So so this is the website where anybody can go and find anything out about you, right?
Yeah, it's joelgandara.com. That's where
Yeah.
guys can buy the book or sign up for the class.
So is
You
it
click on
just,
challenge
yeah,
right in the
challenge.
middle there.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty lengthy thing, just covering some things. Are you going through this? Do you want to improve that? Yeah.
Now, is this something that they have to be down in close to you, or is this something they can do online, or is this, how does
Yeah.
it work for somebody who's not in South Florida?
Oh, no. Majority are not in South Florida. We got people in Bali, Hungary, Greece, Canada, Bolivia. we've had guys from all over the world do it. The majority are in the United States, but they don't have to be. And even the ones in the United States, they're from everywhere else.
That's fantastic. And people can just buy your book off the website, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And the book is great, I think. It's been, proven by the guys who do it. They've done it. However, it's not as powerful as being in a group, in a class.
Right.
Because when you're in a class, here's the two things that I get. It's I needed this accountability in my life, and I needed this bond and this brotherhood with all the other guys. When you read a book by yourself, that doesn't happen. And oh, by the way, I've read a lot of books. I do audiobooks, and I've had some good years where I do 52 audiobooks, one a week, especially when you're running a lot. You do long distance running, you put audio and you can cover a book a week easy. But I have one problem with books, and I'm all about self-help and business and biographies about business people. Love all of that. The problem is it's a lot of data, and they never ask you to do anything. For the most part, unless you read like Traction or one of these EOS or business books, sure. But for the most part, you're not being told to do anything. You're just listen and be a bystander. And I get bored. I'm a little hyper and I get bored just listening. So I want to do. I got ants in my pants. I always got in trouble in school because I didn't sit still and I wanted to be doing things. So my book is 3 to 5 minutes a day of reading. That's it. It's a few pages, but then there's always one action, maybe 2 actions that you got to take for that day. There's always a physical component to it. And there's also another one that is a mental component or an exercise where you got to get a pad of paper and write out some things and think through some things. And what I get every time from every class overwhelmingly is I've never had to do this introspection. I've never had to stop and go, yeah, wait, what was that relationship like? Why does that bother me? Let me write it down. So that's how it works. That's how the daily practice works during those 31 days.
And is that if somebody buys the book, can it be self-directed, or is it better to be part of the coaching group?
It's better to be part of a group. Look, I've been a lone wolf all my life. I was always the oddball out. When I was little, I came to this country. I didn't speak English the first couple of years. And when I did speak English, it was very broken. I was always the oddball. And in school, I did very poorly in early on in elementary school. Very proud, though. I won friendliest in 3rd grade, and I got a perseverance certificate in 7th grade. If I had that, that would be on my wall. I wish I still had that piece of paper. Mr. Black in 7th grade gave me a perseverance award. I had to look it up and figure out what that meant. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I keep going. But I always did everything on my own. And now, as I've gotten older, I realize, oh, there's power in some partnerships and in being together with the right people. And that's what these guys who know it better than I do are telling me. I got the book by myself. I started it, and I realized that it's not the same. When they go in here, I give them an accountability partner. I'm involved all 31 days. I'll talk to every one of those guys all days because we're in a WhatsApp together, and we communicate and we share. So one guy today takes the book, and the assignment for today is to do this. That for Phil, it's super easy. You've got that part of your life conquered. But there's a few guys in there who go, you know what? I can't, I'm having trouble. I can't. And maybe they jump on a quick call with you, Phil, or they text back and forth offline, or you talk to the accountability partner talks to you and you help them through it. So there's this magical power. I'm not into mysticism or anything like that, but everybody's like, I don't know how you've done this, but there's just power in there, which is beautiful. It's not me. I just bring people together and give them some assignments, and something beautiful comes out on the other side. It's definitely better to do it with somebody. And by the way, This isn't because I'm trying to sell a high ticket item. As of right now, that entire 31 days where I'm extremely involved is $199. This isn't a get rich scheme. I'm not trying to, trick anybody. I'm doing it as cheap as possible so that I can make a few dollars, but have people at least put a couple dollars in so they feel invested and they stick it out.
Yeah, I think that's important that they feel invested in it, because I think if you pay for something, you want to get value out of it, even if it's not, a lot of money. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. Certainly, you're fortunate in that it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but just trying to change people's lives is admirable. But I do agree with you that there's power in numbers. And again, I'll relate back to when I was doing triathlons, because I got involved with groups, and we used to go out Saturday morning and ride, 60, 80 miles, or, run or do things. Then when you're with people, you can push yourself, I think, a little bit further than when you're by yourself. When you're by yourself and you get to that point when in your run where you go, yeah, I don't have it today. I just don't have it today. And maybe it's mile 10, mile 11 or whatever, and you decide that that's it. You don't do that when you're with a group. If they say we're going for a 20-mile run or 15-mile run or whatever it is, that's where you're going. So you don't have that option. And I find that that's important because you do push each other. So you're 100% right. And yeah, you can support each other. Hey, I'm struggling today, or I don't understand this one piece. So yeah, it's great.
And that, like in that example that I said, and it goes with what you're saying, when you are able to help three guys who are struggling, well, guess what? Tomorrow's activity, it's going to be reversed. One of those guys is really good at that part of his life. And you're going
Yeah.
to write in the chat and say, this one's a little tough for me because of this. Boom. Someone's going to jump to your aid and help each other out. You know
Yeah.
what? A lot of times girls have that. Guys don't seem to have that. So many of us are lone wolves. Hey, don't cry. You're a boy. Be tough. And we just don't reach out to other guys. So when you can build that in a cool environment where you're all here for the same reason. And here's a beautiful thing. It takes a guy with a special control over his ego when he says, you know what, a book that's called 31 Days to Become a Better Man. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Because if you have a massive ego, you go, what are you talking about? I'm the best in the world. I don't need anything, right? So I hope not to mess this up, but over 200 guys have done this year. I haven't had a single jerk in this program because I get to know them. Not a single jerk has gone through this. So that means, who are you combining with? A lot of cool guys who don't have that ego and aren't just trying to show how big and tough they are. So that's a nice thing to bring the right people together. Not just numbers, but the right numbers.
I think by virtue of what it's called, 31 Days to Be a Better Man, you have to be a bit introspective, and you have to say to yourself, I could be a better man. I could always be a better man. I could always improve. So you are going to attract that person just by virtue, I think, of the name of the book. Because if, like you said, if you look at that and go, I'm already a good guy, I don't need this. Well, you're not going to get involved. You're not going to want to get involved because you think you've got it licked. And I'll tell you, I'm a little bit older than you, not much, but a little bit older than you, and I don't think I've got it licked. I never walk around and go. I'll tell you who's been the best inspiration for me in terms of how to deal with life is my wife, because my wife is unbelievable at dealing with problem solving and stress of just everyday life. And she'll look at me and go, well, that's not the way that we're going to handle this. We're going to do this. And she's always, something goes wrong in the house, something blows up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to put a new water system in. She's like, it's what happens when you own a house. You have to change things. So we're going to deal with it. You go, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, she's been fantastic, and I think that she's made me a better parent because I think my kids are very well grounded, and they're great kids and achievers. They've never had any problems, and I credit that to my wife because she's absolutely great at handling that type of situation. So, but you're 100% right. Women can support each other. Guys, I could never walk up to my neighbor. We could talk about football. We talk about, dogs and things like that, but I'd never walk up to him and go, hey, I need help with such and such. So I see where you're coming from. And I think it's important that guys maybe start doing that because that's how you become a better man, when guys sort of form a group.
Well, guys don't ask for directions, right? So nowadays you don't have to because of GPS, but that was the thing in our day. Guys wouldn't ask for directions. They'd rather get lost and go around in circles. But how cool is it if there's a safe place to ask for directions where your wife's not going to find out you're asking for directions? You're still cool. You're still the tough guy who knows everything, but behind the scene, you can go, hey, a little bit, show me this direction. Or better yet, when you really form that bond and that brotherhood, they can go, hey man, do you want any direction? Because I see you might be going that way. And that, we had a topical discussion with my guys yesterday here in person. A lot of guys flew down for the weekend and we had a nice retreat. And one of the things we talked about, not to get morbid, but there's a problem with guys and suicide. Most suicides are men, and a lot of it can be prevented. And they're great guys. They're not these crazy guys. It's just that they get in a dark place and they feel alone. And we're not this anti-suicide group. These are guys who are all very successful and doing well in life and very happy and accomplished. It's just that says something. There's something out there that's missing, and whether they become suicidal or not, why not do the things that help you not go in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a couple of people commenting that the class has much value, and let's learn and gain knowledge. So I think people are looking at what you're doing, and it's probably inspiring. I think anytime you can inspire somebody to do something, I think it's a great thing. So I applaud you. Obviously you could take some of your business knowledge, you take your business success, what you've been through, that have all sort of framed into who you are, and now giving back or using that knowledge in a positive way. It's fantastic.
You know what happens also? I like things that are organic and just happen on their own. For
Yeah.
all those years, I don't know why, when I was young, I was saving money. Turns out, hey, that allowed me to buy real estate. And every year from 22 to 25 years old, I bought a house 4 years in a row. And that set me up for, real estate went up, rents went up, everything went well. But I didn't know why. I just going to save, like I said earlier. However, that also happened with my own education. I would read a book a week and just keep studying my own stuff, just wanted to learn stuff. But I didn't know that one day that would help me impact more lives, because when I coach people, they could tell me the situation they're going to, and immediately I could reflect on, I've heard this before in a
Yeah.
slightly different way. But look, here's the case. Read this book or check out this chapter of this book. It's going to help you in your life. So that's a good reason. I think for me, it motivates me. If I learn more, then I get to help more people. That's great. That's great for me. I get to learn more because of it. If I struggle more and I put myself physically in uncomfortable situations, I think life's way too easy. And the reason we stress out is because we're not doing the hard things that our ancestors used to do. You think our ancestors felt gloomy? When they had to hunt for food all day, that's all they talked about. They weren't feeling sad. They weren't worried about how many followers you have more than them on Instagram. They were hunting, and they were probably happy because they were doing the things they needed to do to survive. And I always think that they worked so hard to get here, to get us here, to survive. And now we're depressed and we're sad and we have anxiety. And a lot of that can be prevented, in my opinion. I'm not a professional, but man, I'm a professional at living. And I've been analyzing life for quite a while for myself and my coaching clients, where if I put myself in uncomfortable situations, not only does that help me get through life, but when someone comes to me and says, hey, Joel, I don't know, I'm so down, I know what to ask them. I say, tell me what you're eating, tell me the exercise you're doing, and tell me what uncomfortable positions you're putting yourself in. And one example is go run. If you can't run, then find bike riding. If you can't bike ride, swim. If you can't swim, there's something that's going to make you a little bit uncomfortable to get up in the morning, like your training plans, Phil, when you've done triathlons. That's a little bit uncomfortable. The anxiety and the crazies and the stress kind of go away when you're doing those uncomfortable things, but more so when you can use that as an example to help someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. You're 100% right. Well, we're starting to run out of time a little bit, and that went quick because that was such a great, I think, just a great talk. But if there's one thing that you could leave people with, entrepreneurs, young men, people watching, obviously people are reacting in the comments, and they're understanding what you're talking about. But if there's one thing you could leave them with, one thought, what would it be?
Yeah. About 20 ran through my head. I'll narrow it down to one. You could have helped me out by telling me in advance you were going to ask me to say that.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Is to build community. And I have found that has made life more enjoyable, more fruitful, more full. And I'll give you a few examples of just that. Build the community. What does that mean? For me, it means when I moved into my neighborhood, I threw parties and I invited all the neighbors. I had a live band, I had catered food, and I invited everyone. 10 houses behind me, everyone on my street, and everybody came. And then I found something. I was only 2 years in the neighborhood, a year. And then this guy and this person would meet for the first time. And I'd say, wait a minute, I've only been here a year. I know you've been here 9 years. You've been here 12 years. You told me you guys just now meet for the first time. They go, yeah, we never met. Well, you're 12 houses away from me. How do I know all of you and you don't know that? So when I come home, I love it. They're all my friends, everybody around you. They get invited to every party. Let's see. So that's at home. I joined a jiu-jitsu academy 3 years ago, and I trained 5 to 7 days a week. There was no WhatsApp channel. Nobody knew each other. I'd roll, fight with somebody one day, and then the next day I'd roll with another guy, and I knew what both of them did for a living. I knew where they lived, how many kids they have. I knew all that. And I'd say, this happened. I said, James, You know, Tom, you guys are in the exact same industry. You both own companies. You should work together. He's a supplier. He goes, he's in my industry. I had no clue. I go, how long have you been here? 2 years. How long him? 3 years. And you've you fought together. What do you talk? You don't talk before, after. So I formed a WhatsApp group there, and we have now all these friendships and get along. I mean, beautiful relationships. And then same thing. Lastly, in my men's group, there's all these men just scattered throughout the world, and they don't know each other. And they always say, I can't believe you brought this amazing group of guys together. It's the same thing. I built a community. That's all. And it doesn't cost too much. It doesn't take much effort. And you can build those relationships. Today, I got a letter in the mail. I don't think I have it. It's right here. I blacked out his name. This is a young guy in his early 20s, entrepreneur. He mailed me a handwritten letter from New York because he took my 31-day program. And he said it in there. He says, you've changed my life. You're the man. All these, beautiful things he's complimenting me on. But what did he just do by doing this? He just raised his value in my mind. If that kid needs anything, come to me. I'm going to help you out. You need contacts. You need what? I'm going to help you out. Because he spent 4 minutes writing on a little half piece of paper, and he put it in an envelope. And by the way, that's one of the challenges in my 31 days. You got to do that. And you got to pick who you're going to do it. And that is how you build a community. That's how you build great relationships that are going to go far.
But even in your business, right, with EO, was really building a community. I mean, even though you didn't start EO, just participating in it, but each region, you had your forums every so often, and that was sort of building a small community and guys helping each other out in business, or people helping each other out in business. So yeah, I can understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it works. That stuff works.
Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate you coming on, Joel. I think this was fantastic. I hope that people go and sign up and buy your book and take your course. I think they're going to get a lot out of it. So I really appreciate you being here.
It's been my pleasure, Phil. Good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks. So just a tremendous interview. Really inspiring. You really want to go out and make a difference after seeing that, and after listening to Joel. Excuse me. But again, we're almost out of time, and we've got a couple of great shows coming up. We're going to do a lot in the next couple of weeks with AI, and how people are using AI to advance businesses and start businesses, but in a responsible way. A lot of the things you're hearing about AI, I think you have to really understand it, and I think a lot of people don't. But in the meantime, don't forget, scan this QR code. It'll take you to my site. You can just download a good startup business planning book. It's nothing like what you're going to find out. It's more simple. It gets you thinking on the right path. Not as good as Joel's book, but it'll get you thinking on the right path to get your business going. If you have an idea, if you have a concept, I put it in good form, because after doing this for as many years as I've been doing it, I really broke it down to simplicity. So scan that QR code. It's free. So keep tuning in. Again, we've got a couple of great episodes coming up, some really great entrepreneurs. I think Joel was very inspirational, a little bit different than we normally do, which isn't necessarily bad, but he sort of piggybacks on, if you watched last week with Matt, sort of piggybacks on that whole piece that Matt was talking about what inspires entrepreneurs, and also what stops entrepreneurs, right? The fear factor and the process, and having a support group. And here Joel's talking about community everywhere, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in your gym or whatever you're doing. So again, we hear that a lot. So have a really great. Thanks for joining tonight, and reach out anytime you want to for any help that we can give on our side. If you ever need to get in touch with some of the entrepreneurs we have on here, they're all willing to talk. Joel has his website. You can go to it, joelgandara.com, and reach out to him. Obviously, he's a very personable guy and loves to help. So thanks and good night, and tune in next week. Thank you.